You ready for this? It's showtime. Lights, fans, action. Oh yeah, we've got action. Faster, tougher, more ferocious. There's nothing like League. This is the Betfred Super League.
Got me here. It took a big chunk out of me. Bleeding. It's bleeding. Oh no, it's bleeding. The thing just ripped my ear off. What do you think?
It's one of those special editions of Eddie and Stevo, the podcast this week. Another one where I meet and speak to one of the legends of the game of rugby league. And this week it's a man I am proud to call a really close friend and someone who worked alongside me for well over 30 years when we were both at Sky. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that he is the longest serving member of the Sky Sports Rugby League team. He's the unsung hero of thousands of broadcasts, the glue who holds the production together, and one of the finest rugby league brains that you will ever meet. I'm talking about Ian Proctor, the brain of International Rugby League. And Ian, it's really great to see you again. How are you going?
Very well, thanks, Eddie. It's great to see you again. I always feel embarrassed when you start talking about me in those terms because there are a lot of brainier people than me. The more you get to learn about this game, there seems to be more people and more knowledgeable people than you think.
Well, I'll tell you something now. If I was ever a contestant on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, you would be my phone a friend. There's no doubt about that. I don't know anybody who has got more knowledge about this game than you, and you're still steeped in rugby league as ever, aren't you?
Yep, it'll never leave me. Find a job you love, you never work a day in your life. Those were the words of Gary Hetherington, I think it was, and they've never been more correct in my terms.
Tell me how it all began for you, because I know you've followed the game since you were in short trousers, really. But where did this passion for facts and figures and knowledge, where did it all come from?
It came from just going to games initially. I went to watch Leeds when I was 7. They weren't a very good team then. They'd just won the championship and then they started to go on a bit of a slump. And my dad was unable to take me to Headingley for a little while, so he sent me to Ellen Road with my cousin to watch Leeds United. They were just coming out of the second division. They were getting massive crowds of 40,000. And then my dad said to me, do you want to come back to Headingley or do you want to go to Ellen Road? I said, I'll go to Headingley. And nobody could believe me. None of my friends were all my friends were shocked. They were saying, why do you want to go there when there's only 5,000? But I just preferred going to Headingley. I just preferred it. And then Leeds came good.
And from there, it all just took off. I mean, in those days, there was no internet. There was no Google and you'll find out the answers to everything. So was it all in a book? Did you write it all down? How did you keep on top of everything?
Well, not initially, because there wasn't much, as you say. There's not much in the way of publications or books about rugby league. There's the occasional one, but you didn't get much. But then I met people like Ray Fletcher from the Yorkshire Post, who was a great mentor. He showed me how to keep records with try scoring and appearances and things like that. And it began to develop and you began to get a taste for things. You wanted to know when a team had not won at a particular ground for a long time, or which players were breaking records, try scoring sequences, goal kicking records and things like that. And so it's just something that developed, and the more I got to learn, the more I wanted to know.
And you are really like a sponge. I mean, I know when we used to work together, you used to send me facts and figures on every game that we did the commentary on. I mean, you had heights, weights, caps for the countries, inside leg. You had the lot. You really did. And there's some nuggets in there that you always you find out about somebody. You obviously, I mean, passion is a great word. You're obviously really passionate about this sport.
Yeah, I do. I love it. I mean, I can't get into any other game than this. I mean, I can watch a bit of football, but I don't even like that as much as I used to do. But rugby league is the thing I want to watch all the time. I can't get enough of it. I watch, obviously, all the 6 Super League games now because we have access to them. But you can get to watch 8 NRL games a weekend, and I just about try and do that. My wife's not very pleased sometimes, a bit locked away sometimes, but actually you need a good understanding wife to do this job, and Angela's that for me. But certainly I can't get enough of rugby league, and it's just the passion I have.
Is it 8 days a week? It must be. It sounds like it.
Sounds like a Beatles song, that, Eddie. But yeah, 8 days a week is probably about right. You just it rolls on. As I said to somebody once at Sky, you step on the treadmill in February and you don't get off till October. It just literally flies that particular time, and what more could you ask for in a working life? How
long does it take you to do a game? How long does it take you to research just one match?
It's difficult. With the 2 live games we do is much more intense because I write a preview, which then tries to focus in on facts about the particular game we're doing that particular day. What it means, where there's been any sort of history of sequential results or scoring sequences by any of the players in those games. And then there's also the graphics aspect where I put the little biographies on in case they need them, and that's useful because when they get dead air time, they can throw them up, and things like that. And for yourself, when you used to commentate, if a player goes down injured, you need as much information probably on them as you can get just to keep the thing flowing. So that's why I tried to cover every aspect.
Well, I remember you used to give me a nudge on my left shoulder, and I used to push my earphone forward. You used to speak into this ear, and out it came. I was 100% sure that whatever you said was absolutely accurate. I mean, and that's a great tribute to you. It really is.
Yeah, it was the fact that we were in sync together. I could almost anticipate that if somebody had got 2 tries, you're going to want to know when he's got a hat-trick. So I was ready for that if it happened, that type of thing. But obviously you're looking for any other records that are looming. And obviously you've got so much on your plate, and you got your producer in your ear, that I'd be ready if a record was about to be broken or equalled or whatever. But it's just the aspect of being one step ahead if you can be for when it happens.
Well, at the moment, Warrington have beaten St Helens 6 games in a row. That never happened. Never ever happened before.
They were always their bogey team, Saints, weren't they, for a long time when we did Super League. I think the first game they ever played in Super League was 25-24 to Saints. And Warrington just couldn't get a win. I think the only win they had was the week before the 2001 Cup final. Saints were playing down at Twickenham against Bradford, so they played Warrington the week before, and I think Warrington put 50 points on them at Wilderspool. But apart from that, they couldn't win anywhere against them until recent years, and Sam Burgess has certainly got the wood on them now.
He has. He's turned them around as far as that's concerned. I mean, you look back all over all those years. Do you remember our first ever broadcast? Remember the first one we ever did?
Do you mean the pilot one or the real one?
Well, let's start with the pilot. When was that?
The pilot one was in 1990. I think it was 11th of March 1990, and it was Widnes versus Bradford, and I think it was Widnes 14, Bradford 40. I'm almost sure. But the first live one we did was April the 1st that year, April Fool's Day, and it was Wakefield versus Wigan.
And who made a fool out of who that day?
We all signed up for it, Eddie, and we've nobody else to blame but ourselves.
No, that's right. But on the match itself, I take it Wigan won.
Wigan won, yeah, obviously. I think Ellery Hanley was in his pomp about that time. And Wakefield, I think they were just not doing too badly, actually, I think, that year. I think that was the year they had Steve Eller and Mark Graham playing for them, but I don't think they played in that particular game.
Well, as I say, you go back so far, and Stevo, of course, who works on this podcast with me every week, you're you're probably the only one in the Sky team that actually saw the old fella play.
I did see him play, and he broke my heart in 1973. He was the captain of Dewsbury. Scored 2 tries, won the Harry Sunderland Trophy as man of the match when Dewsbury beat Leeds in the Championship final. And Leeds had played them in the Yorkshire Cup final a few months earlier and flogged them 36-9, so we thought it was an easy win for Leeds. And Steve and his teammates turned it around, and it has to go down as one of the greatest Championship upsets in history because they came from 8th in the league that year to win the title.
Wow. They did a Leeds on Leeds, a modern day Leeds on Leeds.
Well, you speak to Stevo about that, and they played Bradford in a cup semi-final not too many weeks before that, and they got beat by Bradford. It was a one league system in those days. Bradford, I think, were 23rd in the league, and they beat Dewsbury in this semi-final, and Stevo was broken hearted because they were favourites for that game, and they got beat when they shouldn't have done. And he always said that spurred them on to go on and win the championship. And it's funny because I was looking back at when the World Cup team that won Stevo's World Cup team in '72. Out of all that team, I think Steve was the only one who didn't play at Wembley. The other one was Paul Charlton, who didn't play for a club side at Wembley, but he played at Wembley in the '73 Ashes series first test against Australia down there. Steve had gone to Penrith at that stage.
You know, he's never played at Wembley. I did. Do you know that?
No.
I played in a curtain raiser, a football match it was, not rugby league. I mean, I've never been brave enough to even put a rugby league pair of boots on, but I played in a curtain raiser. I think it was the Sherpa Van Trophy. Blackburn Rovers against Wolves, I think. I played at Wembley. He hates me for that. He hates me because I played there and he never did.
Well, that really will be one up for you.
Makes a change. How good a player was he, Stevo?
He was a really good player. I mean, he had to be pushing out the hookers who were around at that time. There were so many great hookers. He always said, and I think a lot of people would agree, that he should have gone on tour in 1970 when we won the Ashes. He was kept out by Peter Flanagan, who was known as Flash Flanagan from Hull KR, and the other hooker was Tony Fisher, a Welshman. And they brought the Welsh team back that particular year. They did well, and Fisher got picked for the tour, and I think Stevo felt a bit aggrieved that he should have gone on that tour. But he was tremendous. I mean, the great Doug Lawton, who recently passed away, he once picked his all-time team, and he had Stevo at hooker, so he was a good judge of talent. Was Dougie Lawton, wasn't he?
He was just a bit, yeah. I mean, the players he signed for Widnes in their pomp. I mean, look, we're all great pals, and I know that you've been away with Stevo on trips after the season when he had to wind down before he went back to Australia. You ended up in bars and pubs all over the place, and you've won him a few pints of bitter, haven't you? You've won him a few pints of lager, haven't you?
Oh yeah, he likes to engage in the supporters, and they all flock round him when they see him. Oh, it's Stevo, and then he always says to them, "If you can beat my mate in a question, we'll buy you a pint. But if he beats you, you have to buy us one."
He's a crafty
and
devil.
He tends to get a few free drinks out of that.
So he owes you a few. Is that what you're saying?
Well, he won't say that, but yeah, I've got them. I've got the tally in my notebook.
So, if I said to you now, a year, Challenge Cup year, final, could you give us the details behind that? Do you think you're confident?
Yeah, I think so.
And you've not got anything here?
Just got my water.
Just a little bottle of water. You've got no Google. You've got no mobile phone. So let me pick a year. 1962.
That was Wakefield versus Huddersfield at Wembley, and Wakefield won 12-6. And the man of the match was Neil Fox, and he got it. He kicked 3 drop goals that day, and they were all worth 2 points in those days, so they were the difference, 12-6. And Neil was a great hero of mine. I used to have a cousin. He followed football. He was a big hero of his was Bobby Charlton. He used to write off and send for autographs from him, and I copied him, and I did it with Neil Fox, sent some photographs off, sent a Wakefield team photograph off to Bellevue, and it came back signed by Neil Fox and all the Wakefield team. And years later I met Neil, told him about this, and he said, "Yep, I remember that." He says, "Because nobody else ever did that in 1963.
Incredible. That's the game, isn't it? That is the sport. Yeah. They're all down to earth, good, honest people.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it. I mean, never meet your heroes, they say, but in rugby league you tend to meet them, and they tend never to disappoint you. And they can't do enough for you, and they really are down to earth people and role models, I think, for a lot of people.
Very much so. Greatest team you've ever seen?
1982 Kangaroos, without any shadow of doubt. Came over here and I saw all 15 games in England, which they won, and then I saw them go to France, saw them win the third test out in Narbonne, which completed the tour with a 100% record. Got to know some of the players, Rod Reddy particularly. Frank Stanton, the coach, became a friend. And the players were just all my similar age. You know, there was Brett Kenny, there was Peter Sterling, there was Wally Lewis. All great players who were around my age, and they stayed in Leeds. I knew them as friends because we went to a few functions they had, and it was just a special time, and they just it was a breath of fresh air when they came to this country. I think most people realise that.
Yeah, they were the Invincibles, weren't they, in 1992? Greatest player?
My favourite is Brett Kenny. He was sensational. He came on that tour as a understudy standoff, they said, to Wally Lewis, who was the vice captain. Wally was dislodged by Frank Stanton. He picked Brett Kenny to go alongside Sterling in the halfbacks, and they won the 3 tests. He came back out in '86 when Wally was the captain of the Australian team, and Brett Kenny obviously couldn't get in at standoff then. So he moved to centre and kept Mal Meninga out. He played at Wembley and won the Lance Todd Trophy in '85 for Wigan, probably the greatest cup final of all time. And his try that day particularly lives in my memory. And then he played in 3 grand finals for Parramatta and scored 2 tries in each of them. So he played in 4, but he played in 3 in a row, scored 2 tries 3 in a row, and they were the first titles that Parramatta had ever won. So I think he was pretty special, Brett Kenny.
Oh, fantastic player. And you mentioned that 1985 final, the greatest, I think, Challenge Cup final of all time.
Greatest cup final, I would say, in my time, and certainly the best narrative we've had. We've had Sterling on one side, Kenny on the other side, both teammates at Parramatta playing opposite each other for the first time anybody had seen, and they were both potential man of the matches, and it really was a special final. And even the Australians, I remember the great writer Ian Heads coming over and writing in glowing terms about what a great final it was, what a great occasion it was, and obviously the Kenny Sterling factor, but there's also John Ferguson on the wing, and John Muggleton was playing for Hull as well in the second row. It's just a wonderful final.
Dropping the names from Australia, what about the greatest English player you've ever seen? Don't say Stevo, for goodness sake.
Very difficult to choose in different eras. I mean, Malcolm really is an all-time favourite of mine. You've got to pick Ellery Hanley as a great player as well. Modern day players, Sam Burgess would be high up there for what he's done in the Australian game and then coming back here. But I think there's so many. It's hard to choose between eras because it's hard to choose, which style of football. It's like picking teams, greatest teams. You got to know which era you're playing in, whether you need a hooker who's going to strike for the ball, or whether it's going to be a modern day hooker like James Roby or Kieran Cunningham. It's difficult to choose between eras, but there's so many great players we've seen. It's an endless list.
This is a question I'm taking a chance on. Greatest try you've ever seen?
Wide to West, Eddie? Would that go anywhere near to the thoughts? But it wouldn't be West who scored it, would it?
No, Chris Joynt scored the try. And Chris Joynt said to me when I retired that he'd scored X number of tries for St Helens, but that's the only one anyone ever talks about. I mean, it's fantastic, isn't it?
It is, really. I mean, when you think everybody calls it Wide to West, and I'm sure a few people had struggled to remember who scored it. We all remember St Bernard, don't we? Jumping on him.
He lost the head, and Sean Long put it on to kick the goal, and the referee told him to take the head off. Remember?
Yeah, very, very funny incident that. But I don't think Matthew Elliott was smiling, was he?
Oh no. He stood up, and then he went to sit down. The chair had flipped up, and he ended up on the floor. Yeah. Poor old Matty.
That was classic footage. That was, but yeah, I mean, that was a great era for Super League. You'd St Helens and Bradford, Wigan and Leeds all on a pretty even keel. There was not much to choose between any of those 4 teams, and it was just an era where everybody was really pushing each other to better heights. And
sadly, only those 4 clubs have ever won a grand final.
It's hard to believe, isn't it? After 30 years, I mean, we've only had 4 teams that have been ever present in the Super League. That's Leeds, Wigan, Saints, and Warrington. I mean, Warrington they're the bridesmaids of Super League, aren't they? 4 grand finals, 4 defeats. If Sam Burgess can turn that around and bring the first championship for 70 years, I think he'll get the freedom of Warrington, won't he?
I think he certainly will. He'll probably get the town hall to live in, I would think.
He's done a great job, though, hasn't he, Sam Burgess, already in less than 2 years. I mean, they couldn't beat St Helens for love nor money in the early days of Super League, but now I think he's got 6 in a row, and they'll be looking for a 7th in a few weeks' time. But he's got them to within 80 minutes of another Wembley final, and he wasn't far from getting them to the grand final last year. Just got pipped at Hull KR in the semi, which could have gone either way.
And Hull KR this year could be at the moment, anyway, the way they're playing, they could be the 5th name on that Super League trophy.
Yeah, we thought this last year, didn't we? But Wigan were just too good. A 4-trophy clean sweep, and there was no denying that. But Hull KR this year, they've added something in Jared Warrior-Hargreaves for sure. Mickey McAlorum adds another level to professionalism and pragmatism in that pack. So you'd think they would go close this year. Michael Lewis is definitely on another level. And you'd think that the Robins this year will never have a better chance. But then you could say that about Warrington. You know, they have been there or thereabouts for so long. They've added Mark Sneed now. He looks a different class for what they've had at halfback, and I think he adds a new level for Warrington.
Well, as you say, if Sam Burgess does manage to do that, he will get the freedom of the borough. There is no doubt about it. 29 years ago, Super League was born. We were in Paris that first night. What memories?
Incredible, Eddie. You can't believe we actually started in Paris. You can't believe Sheffield Eagles were the opposition either.
No.
But that was a weekend that I'll never forget. I mean, we did Paris and then we came back, went to Oldham Boundary Park, played Wigan. Stevo announcing the teams coming out, and I think Martin Afire came out 4 times. And then we went to Headingley on the Sunday. Leeds played Warrington, Euston Harris shining for Warrington. And I always remember the Thursday after we were down at London to see London v Paris at Charlton. And the queues were around the block to get in the ground, and we thought Super League's cracked it here, but sadly it didn't quite continue.
It didn't. I mean, Maurice Lindsay, who was in charge then, he said to us, you know, you will be playing in Dublin, in Paris, in Milan, and all the great cities of Europe. It's never quite materialised, but we are still the European Super League. Incredibly, in my opinion, there is rumour that the Super League clubs, some of them, would like to see Catalan go. Can't believe it.
Not for me, no. I think Catalan have been a success story in the Super League. I mean, coming in 2006, we were there for the first game. It wasn't at Stade Gilbert Brutus, it was at the Aimé Giral Rugby Union ground. Fantastic night where they beat Wigan 38-30. And you'd think, the things they've done, they've got to 2 grand finals the last 3 years. They've been to Wembley and won the Challenge Cup. They've added a new dimension to the game with so many great players they've produced and signed from Australia. And I think it would be madness to get rid of Catalan Dragons. I think they've been a success story. We need them in Super League. But I think even Maurice Lindsay wouldn't have dreamed of saying we're going to Las Vegas, would he?
No. I mean, that was a gimmick, wasn't it? A great gimmick and a great publicity stunt.
It was fantastic that Wigan and Warrington managed to get in on that. And the performance from Wigan in that game, it got the Australians thinking and talking about the Super League and how good it was, how good Wigan were anyway. I mean, I think they were 42-0 up at one stage in that game, and the football they played. And I think some of the Australians must be looking and thinking, why did we not keep Jay Field and Bevan French? I mean, they're just playing on a different level for Wigan. And you wonder why the Australians didn't manage to hold on to them in the NRL.
I know. And you also wonder why, when the Australians see Wigan play the way they did in Vegas, why the World Club Challenge has not been played in 2025.
That's been an opportunity missed, I think. And I think Penrith, they seem to fight shy of playing Wigan again. I mean, I think they got a few rough decisions when they played Wigan last season when they were beaten, and they lost at home to St Helens the year before, and they've never won it on Penrith, so you'd think they'd want to get their hands on it. And you'd think that Vegas would be the ideal place to hold a World Club Challenge so they could finish that weekend particularly with something tangible to play for at the end of it, wouldn't you?
Do you think we'll see it again, the World Club Challenge? I mean, the NRL are supposed to be interested in helping run the Super League. If they are, that's got to be top of the agenda, hasn't it?
You'd like to think so. I just can't understand why the Australians don't place much emphasis on the World Club Challenge. Even when you talk about the record keeping, and I don't think they even count the World Club Challenge on their appearance records, which to me it's like not counting a European Cup final in football. It's the 2 best teams you would think on either side of the hemispheres. And we've had so many great World Club Challenges. I mean, we were mentioning Dougie Lawton earlier. Remember when Widnes beat Canberra at Old Trafford? What a tremendous game that was. They were 12-0 down early on and they came back. And I always remember Dougie saying if it had gone to 18, we'd have been gone. But they came back. Jonathan Davis scored in the corner, Martin Afire, brilliant try scorer. And, you know, those are the occasions that you live off. And I mean, Wigan won it 94 out there, and that changed the course of history, because I think from then, that's when Super League was born, when Wigan beat Brisbane in Brisbane. I think the people in Australia realised that, you know, they need to get something moving regarding the game over here.
Very much so. And I mean, the problem is that the Aussies, I think, regard it as a pre-season warm-up, and we regard it as, you know, one of the major trophies you can win.
I think so. I don't think any player would not relish winning a World Club Challenge. I mean, speak with Barry McDermott a lot, and he won the Challenge Cup at Wembley, he won a grand final, and he still says that beating Canterbury Bulldogs at Ellen Road when Leeds won that first World Club Challenge in 2005 is one of his greatest memories and moments in the game. It was a tremendous night, but the Australians, as you say, do regard it as a pre-season thing, whereas we treat it for what it is. It's another cup final, isn't it? And I mean, I think St Helens, for all the 4 in a row that they achieved, the win in Penrith was outstanding that night when they won it with a drop goal from Lewis Dodd, who is now trying to find a place in the South Sydney team in the NRL at the moment.
I know. I think he went to the NRL on the back of that drop goal.
Somebody said it was the most lucrative drop goal in history, but I think Gareth O'Brien might have something to say about that when he kept Salford up and sent Hull KR down with that in 2016 that day.
There's been some great memories over the past 29 years. 30th season of Super League. At the top end, the game goes from strength to strength, the clubs we've already mentioned. The other end, we have the Salford issue that doesn't seem to want to go away at the moment. We do, from time to time, stagger from crisis to crisis, don't we?
We do indeed, and it's sad that I can remember going to Wembley in 2020, being very fortunate to go. It was middle of COVID, so it was only press people allowed to go in, and we were covering the game, fortunately, so we did it. And I always remember Salford hadn't been to Wembley in 51 years. They were playing Leeds in that final. And I saw some supporters on the street corner there at Wembley, clapping the team going on the coach, not being allowed to go in the ground. I felt so sad for those supporters, not been since 69. And you look at the supporters now, they've backed them to the hill and they're seeing players taken from them weekly now. And I just don't know how they must feel about the way things have gone for their club, because they've supported them as much as they can. And yet week after week there's another player seemingly leaving. I
know. It's a tragedy for Paul Rowley and the players. I know there's been financial issues, but you know they've been brilliant in Super League in the recent past. That 2020 Cup final, you maintained your ever-present record at Wembley.
Yeah, that was 50 in a row, that one.
50?
I've not missed one since 1970. I know it gets Dave Woods' goat that I've been going longer than him, so I'll just get that one in. But seriously, no, 1970 was the last one I missed. But the first final I saw was 68, the water splash final. And that was, my dad took me down. But you talk about great memories. Personally, as a Leeds fan growing up, the 68 semi-final when they beat Wigan was probably a high spot for me. Wigan had denied Leeds in 66 in the semi-final, and they played again at Swinton in 68, and it was a tremendous win for Leeds. They won 25-4, and they had these young kids coming through, John Atkinson, Alan Smith, Sid Hines, Mick Shoebottom. They were just coming to the fore, and the great Wigan team with Billy Boston, Eric Ashton were just going over the hill, and it was just a changing of the guard, if you like. And Leeds, you're most influential when you're that age, 14, 15, 16. Leeds won the cup that year in the water splash final. Don Fox, poor old Don Fox missed that goal kick. But then they won the championship 69, and they just kicked on then, did Leeds, for a while.
I mean, you can tell by listening to you, and you throw out all these facts as though it's just a conversation piece. You love every minute of this job, don't you?
I do, yeah. It's just something that you can't wish for. You get a job and job. I mean, it's just a way of life, really. But the fact that you're covering these games and you're in the best positions on the ground, high up, looking down, seeing all the action is such a bonus. You pinch yourself sometimes, and especially when you get friends with some of the players in the game or people in the game who are also generous with the time.
Yeah, brilliant, absolutely brilliant, and I agree with you. I mean, we've sat together for 30 odd years, and it wasn't like going to work, was it? People say to me, what was it like? Well, I didn't work for Sky. We just turned up and had a laugh.
It was. You used to go into work skipping because the crack that was coming when we used to have that Winnebago, and it used to be all hands on deck there, didn't it? Everybody was having a shot, everybody else, but it was fun and games. But there was everybody was pulling together. Everybody wanted. We started off. You'd know better than anyone, Eddie, that not many people thought it would take off on Sky when it started, but it kicked on, and boots and all that you did and things like that enhanced people's perceptions of the game, and then of course when Super League came in '96, it took it to a whole new level, and we all owe it to Neville Smith, really. Yeah,
we do. We owe it to Nev. We owe it to the game for taking the gamble, to Maurice Lindsay, Vic Wakeling, who ran Sky Sports as well. I mean, wonderful, wonderful people. Great memories, and long may it continue. I mean, 30 years now, 30 seasons, 29 years. Where's the game going to be in 30 years' time?
I don't think, Eddie. And I don't think I'll need to bother about that either.
Will you still be keeping the records?
I hope I will be, but I won't put money on it.
Well, Stevo would put money on it, and Stevo has put money on you in the past, and you've got him so many beers, it's just untrue. Ian, it's been a pleasure and a privilege to see you again. More power to your elbow. Keep it going and keep us all entertained. Great to see you. Thanks very much for coming down.
Thanks for the invite, Eddie.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. It really has. Hope you've enjoyed that. That's Ian Proctor, the brains of Rugby League, live on Sky Sports every week. And he keeps them going with his facts and figures, as you could tell from that interview. OK, that's Eddie and Steve on the podcast for this week. Back to normal next time when the big man himself will be joining us. I wonder if he'll be still in Australia or will be back in the United Kingdom. Let's find out together. See you next time. Bye-bye.